welcome. Thank you for coming out this afternoon. I appreciate you spending some time with us. I know that it's precious, especially on a Sunday afternoon, and did not realize this when I was trying to set up the times, that the Bengals are still playing. Who knew? Who cares? But that's me. So my name is Wil Cagle. If I have not met you or you've not seen something from me, I'm the club education director for King's Hammer. So among the many things that are under my observation is the recruiting process, and specifically the coordination with sports recruits. So many of you at this point have probably gotten an email from me regarding, if nothing else, sports recruits. So I appreciate you coming out today. A couple of things. First of all, I want to thank Town & Country and specifically Ryan Schaefer for allowing us to use this space. What I did find out when we were setting it up on Friday, one, and we'll follow up after the discussions. We finish up with Q&A. We're going to do it a little aerobics. So if you guys haven't gotten your workout in, just stick around. We'll do some aerobics. Have plenty of space for that. I was not aware that it was an aerobics room or that they had mirrors. But also, as you've already seen, there is only one light switch. It takes off all of the lights. So in order to see the presentation, we're going to have all the lights off. We've got some mood lighting in so that you guys can still see and potentially take notes. Also, as if the camera in the back did not give it away, this session is being filmed. We're not going to film the boys session that follows because all of the information is the same. But this is going to be filmed, and it will be posted once Matt, and I introduce Matt Schisler. Matt is our director of content and social media, and so he's going to be doing all the whiz-bang stuff afterwards to edit it, put it all together, and then post that. And so we'll post it probably on the website, but then also I'll have a link because I will probably post it on YouTube as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So you'll all get a link from me then as well if you want to go back and revisit it. Everyone who is in attendance or who requests it, because I have had some people who, as you see there's empty chairs this week. You got a note from me saying that we were sold out. We have gotten some declines or regrets that have come in since that Wednesday email went out. So all of the people who have registered for it will also get the presentation as well. And then any of the resources that are mentioned or linked in the presentation will also be sent out as well. So you'll get plenty of information regarding this topic, okay? Just a little bit of background for me so that you understand where I'm coming from this. So kind of gave you the end, which is I am now the education director for King's Hammer. I'll take you to the beginning. So I was a high school head coach for 9 years, boys head coach, and had to deal with obviously a lot of high school players who were interested in potentially moving on, whether that was to play soccer or not. And I do want to preface that even if you end up not playing soccer, and a number of players who play competitively throughout their high school years choose not to play soccer in college for a number of reasons, this information is still going to be beneficial to you. And the Sports Recruit platform, which we'll discuss in detail at the end, is also beneficial for you, even if you choose not to play soccer at some point. So dealing with a lot of kids that were trying to make that decision. I then spent 21 years at Cincinnati State as the head coach, first of the men's team, which we founded in '96, then the women's team and the men's team, and then finally just the women's team before retiring in 2017 from doing that. I've also been engaged in coaching or directing clubs for 25 years, so have had experience with those older age groups. And then lastly, I've somewhat successfully, along with my wife, raised 5 children who have all gone through this process that you're going through right now. Our youngest is a junior at Ohio State. Our oldest graduated a number of years ago, and we had to take them through this entire journey. 2 of them did go through the recruiting process. My oldest ended up not playing in soccer, or playing soccer in college, because in his senior year he decided that wasn't the direction he wanted to go. I do have one who played for 4 years at the Division II level down in Florida, and so we've got a lot of experience with this recruiting process from that standpoint. So that's kind of where my information and education comes from. That and a lot of research, a lot of help from people like Chris Black, who is coming in. Chris, I've got 3 seats reserved just for you up here, so you should be able to find one. until hopefully Victoria will be able to still make it. Oh, okay. So maybe not. All right. Okay. So Meg, it's just going to be on you.
Oh, you, Meg.
All right. So besides myself, I am joined by Chris Black, who is our Girls Academy Director and has a wealth of experience with this recruiting process as well. So Chris, if you have anything to add into the presentation as we go through, that would be appreciated by both myself and I'm sure everyone here in the audience. And then also Meg Gessner, and I'll reintroduce Meg when we get to the segment where we want to get some player input and let her tell you a little bit about her story as we go along, okay? Before we jump in, turn the lights off, and get into the details, I do want to say that this is not the end or full product. I worked on this presentation for 3 weeks. I could have worked on it for 3 months. It is 19 slides, I think. It could have been 50 slides, easily. There's a lot of information out there, okay? My hope today is that we hit the high points, that we get you thinking, and that ultimately we support and provide you the opportunity to dig in yourself. Because in the end, that's who has to do it, right? It has to be you. Parents and kids together, collectively, riding the train in the same direction. Okay, and I've seen the picture where they're not, and it's not pretty, right? So when we walk out of here, hopefully you'll have some ideas for what's next. We're going to provide some, but hopefully you'll have a good framework for what you need to do, whether you're in your first year of high school or you're in your third year of high school, that you have a good idea of what you need to do and where you can start, or at least where you can look for those ideas. All right? Okay. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and dim the lights. I'm going to turn a couple back on. Chris, you missed this. All right. Yes. All right, so here we go. I think this got moved just a bit. Let me just move that back. There we go. All right. This is becoming my go-to first screen. So here we go. So I've walked through this a little bit, but here's the agenda for today. Again, just kind of hoping to provide a simple framework. There are a lot of details within. Some of them I'll jump into. Some of them I'll just keep up there and let you get into them a little bit more when you get the presentation in front of you or when you start the research yourself. So trying to know the landscape, what's out there. You know, what does the college soccer picture look like for your child? Networking, talking about, you know, where conversations need to be had for them, potentially for the parents as well, but, you know, certainly for them. Finding your fit, that's going to be a really critical issue. And you'll get more from me along the road in some of the club newsletters or in the recruiting newsletter. Hopefully, it's not locked, is it? Okay. Hopefully you have already engaged in reading both of those items that come out at the end of each month, the club newsletter and then the college recruiting newsletter. So finding your fit is going to be a big part of this. And then, as I mentioned previously, we'll do a sports recruits overview because it is a great tool that you all have access to as members of the King's Hammer Soccer Club family. And then we're going to turn to the table and we'll get a player perspective, maybe hit on Chris a little bit as well for his perspective as the Academy Director and what he sees as might be best practices for all of you. And then do a little Q&A, all right? I do want to thank those who did take the time to submit some questions or concerns. Hopefully we'll hit all of them or at least a large number of them as we get through this. And again, if I don't, at the end, you're going to have my information and how to contact me if you need some assistance in trying to seek out or find the information that you're looking for. Obviously, I'll be happy to help you. Okay, so recruiting or the college recruiting landscape. What does soccer in college look like? So we're going to take a look at the numbers. So programs, athletes, dollars, time and commitment, and then we'll take a look at some of the obligations. Dates and deadlines and things that kids have to be engaged in if they really want to pursue this as something that they want to put on their resume, college soccer. Okay, so just starting off with where we're at right now. So high school age group players. And this data looks specifically at high school, not the age group, high school, the educational landscape for players. It doesn't specifically address club. That data was not available to me. So number of U.S. players, so you're looking at nearly 500,000 kids participating in high school soccer across the country. And then the number of college players, number of college soccer players across the country at all levels, just over 42,000, all right? So it doesn't take a mathematician. My wife will remind me all the time that I am not one to figure out that that's a pretty decent drop, right? There are a lot of kids who are playing high school soccer who, for one reason or another, don't end up participating in college, okay? So congratulations to those like Meg who are, and for you who are seeking it out. What that should tell you is, okay, there's some work that's going to need to be done here to make sure that this happens, okay? And again, I'm not going to jump into the percentages and all that, but just to know that while there's there's a lot of opportunity, and we're going to see that, it's pretty exceptional for a player to be playing at that level. Okay, so participation stats, programs and rosters. So this, I think, is uplifting, right? This is good information for those who are out there looking at, what's available, right? What can I find? And again, starting at the NCAA level, so 1, 2, and 3, then including NAIA bonus points. You get out of the aerobics at the end. If somebody can tell me what the NAIA is. Nobody? Brian, you don't even want to try? Just guess. And it hurts that you're sitting in the front row and you're a name that I know. Okay. Anybody? National Association for Intercollegiate Athletics. And it is actually the oldest, though clearly not as well known, governing body of organized interclassic sports in the country. All right? It is also one of the largest. All right? It is also sometimes very overlooked because everybody, let me see if I can do this or not. I can't. All right, so everybody wants to look here, all right? And then most people jump to here, and then we forget about here, okay? But these are, if we're talking about opening up my options, and when we get to the slides where we talk about best fit, right? It's gonna be really important that you don't close your eyes and just focus on one option or one aspect of college athletics. I'm sure Chris could rattle off some names. I know that I have coached, and I would say, so I came to Kings Hammer as part of a merger with Northern Kentucky Soccer Academy 2 years ago. So I have a number of athletes who played for me at NKSA who are just finished up or are currently finishing up their careers at NAIA institutions. And they've had tremendous experiences, and they were provided a great opportunity to be engaged in the NAIA and played at a really good level. So you take a look, so 338 schools, 205, 338 who offer soccer. And then what, I wish this pointer, so one of the things that I want, and I'm not gonna run through all of them, I will give you a second to just look through them, is average roster size, okay? When we start going back in, as I said, we get to the best fit, you're going to see where recognizing or knowing that information may become important in your decision making or in guiding your decision. And I'll just stay with the women's side since that's the audience we have right now. NCAA, 262 institutions promoting women's soccer. 441 having women's soccer at the NCAA Division III level, 212 NAIA, and 241 at the junior college level, okay? So lots. So, and then there's some others that are not associated with specific institutions, obviously, because they would be within that realm. So overall, taking a look at 1,457 on the men's side and 1,673 on the women's side. So congratulations, you're in demand, all right? There are a lot of schools offering a program that hopefully can provide you an opportunity if it's the right fit. Okay, so scholarships, raise your hands if you are here because you want to know how to get a soccer scholarship for your daughter. A few, okay, all right. So I will say this, and this is nowhere on this. This is just having been a college soccer coach, having been a high school soccer coach, and having been a parent for 30 years. There is far greater numbers, dollars, money coming from non-athletic sources than there are for athletic sources, right? So I would encourage you, as you walk out of here, as you start to think about your next path, make sure that you're considering all the economic options that are outside of or beyond athletics. All right? So if you take a look at the numbers here, again, it shows you roster sizes again. So I'll just use NCAA Division I because, again, that's the focus for a lot of people. I want to be a Division I athlete. There are 28 women on the average roster for an NCAA Division I school, 14 scholarships max offered. Okay? Now, typically, those are going to be divided amongst more than 14 players, right? There are not a lot of full ride scholarships provided at most of the Division I institutions, and that's also true of Division II, where they do provide scholarships on a tuition basis, and NAIA, where they can provide full scholarships. And by full, I don't mean full as in it covers everything, but full as in it can cover both housing, tuition, and books. Housing, room, and board. Tuition and books, right? So taking a look then at the average dollars, so $18,824 at the NCAA Division I level, so that's room, board, books, tuition, that is all offered, $18,224. I don't know does anybody have anyone in college right now? So this is not your oldest child that is here with you. Okay, a couple. Okay, so you know that $18,000 does not cover, for most colleges, it doesn't, for any that my children went to, half. It's not even half, right? So we're looking elsewhere. And then NCAA Division II, $8,100. And that's pretty, again, that's tuition only. They don't provide for room and board or books. Division III does not provide any athletic aid, although, and I think this might be up in a graphic coming up, I think it's 68%, it might be actually higher, of student athletes playing at the Division III level do have a variety of scholarships and grants provided to them by the institution. NAIA, 76, is that right? Yeah, $7,600. And NJCAA, much lower. Obviously, one consideration is that the cost at NJCAA schools is considerably lower as well, okay? So there are numbers to be had. There are dollars to be had, but hopefully what you take away from this is athletic scholarship is not going to be your sole pathway to college, all right? It just can't be. Meg, would you agree with that? Chris, anything? Yeah, so we've got to make sure that we're looking at other options. So the other thing too, as we, again, trickle down to the best fit discussion, is talking about time management. So how does my time, and I'll ask Meg to address this a little bit when we get to her perspective, how is my time impacted as a college athlete based on the level that I'm playing at? And in this case, it's just taking a look at Division I through III, okay? And I've got a variety of things on here. What I will say is when you get the presentation, if you click on each of these three things, you'll get the full sheet from that division. So there's a full PDF for each of these divisions. But I just put a couple of things that grabbed my attention. One, 67% of the student athletes say they spend as much or more time in athletics, right? Whether that's game days, and there's a little bit more detail on the game days. Game days, training sessions, lifting sessions, study sessions, mandatory meetings, film study. And again, I'll let Meg touch on this a little bit more from her perspective, than they do on academics. Okay? So 67%. I'm sorry, this is 67% the same or more in season, out of season. The information I just gave you is on the sheet more. All right? And then game day, during a typical game day, they can spend up to from 4 to 9 hours for a game. Games are 90 minutes. If you add in halftime, it's 105 minutes, but they spend 4 to 9 hours in prep and closure for a game, okay? And then just cross over here so I can read this a little bit better. So Division II athletes, just gave you a different chart, and this same chart is on for each of these screens, right, for each of the divisions. So time spent on activities per week, right? It's 37% or 37 hours per week on academics, 31 hours per week on athletics, 15 and a half on socializing, and 64 and a half on other things. Might be a job which will not be on the NCAA Division I. I'll let Meg talk a little bit about that, or is much less likely to be on that than the NCAA Division I, okay? And then Division III athletes, 66%, so they were involved in at least 5 hours of work or internship. 24% have some type of, is that?
That's blurry.
Okay, we got to fly that out. There we go. All right. If we get through this, because I'm here, you're there, let me know so I can help you out. And help me out in this case, right? So 24% will study abroad. Again, much less likely at the other two levels than it is at Division III or NAIA. 44% have a job and work some hours, so 8 per week. 66% are involved in an internship or externship, and 67% think it's likely that they'll attend grad school. Right? So just some different perspective on what engagement, what involvement, and you're going to hear that word, that engagement word, again when we get to the fit portion of the presentation. What engagement, what involvement does being a Division I, Division II, or Division III athlete have for the student athlete who is in there? All right, moving on to some frequently asked questions. So these are just, comes from, as you can see on the bottom, and I have the link to this sheet, the NCAA Frequently Asked Questions PDF, which is provided from their website, ncaa.org. What is a recruiting calendar? I'm not going to answer all these until we get through some other screens. I'll answer them as we get through. But what is a dead period? What is contact? How many of you have heard some of these terms? Just raise your hand if you've at least heard a couple of these terms. Okay, good. All right, so you may be aware of them. Whether you know what they are that may be why you're here, because you are going to become familiar with them depending greatly on what level you're looking to pursue. All right, so recruiting calendars. Honestly, this is pretty simple. This is the most straightforward one, but this is where it starts. The recruiting calendar is just set up to, and this is NCAA only for the most part. And we'll see that down at the bottom. It just provides limits for colleges at the various levels in how much contact they can have. So limits recruiting to certain periods during the year, promotes well-being of college-bound student athletes because it provides them a structure that they can follow and know that the coaches who they are engaged with can follow, and then ensures fairness among schools so that there aren't, not that it doesn't happen, and Chris might be able to talk to this a little bit more, but so that coaches are all following guidelines and there are safe and healthy ways for them to engage with the potential student athletes. And then the last one, NAIA regulations do not include a calendar restriction on recruiting high school athletes. They do have a recruiting calendar that is based on athletes who may be transferring, but not currently on athletes who are currently in high school. Okay, so what does a recruiting calendar look like? Again, this comes directly from the NCAA's recruiting guidebook, and so you'll have the link to that at the end of the presentation. So all other sports, that just means that there are different guidelines for football, basketball, ice hockey, some sports that the season or the recruiting efforts are a little bit different. So this covers all other sports, includes soccer. So recruiting materials and electronic correspondence just means that you can receive camps, questionnaires, NCAA materials, and non-athletic recruiting publication at any time, right? How many of you or your child, so if you're a player here, right, how many of you or your athlete have received something in an email or in the mail from a college talking about an upcoming camp? Okay, most of you are, all right? How many of you thought that that was a recruiting tool from that college, that they were interested in you as a potential student athlete at their school? Good, because you're right, right? What is that? What is their interest? Money, yes, because that's how you pay for your volunteer coaches or your assistant coaches. You have them work camps, right? Now, that doesn't mean that those things can't be useful recruiting tools for you as a student athlete. We talk about I've got a lot, man, I'm throwing a lot back to that best fit. Those are going to be two really great slides. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to best fit. Coach can begin sending you recruiting materials and electronic correspondence. So this is, they have interest in you, okay? Beginning June 15th between your sophomore and your junior year of high school, okay? Phone calls to a coach. This came up, there were a couple of different questions from those who registered either for the boys or girls who asked about these next two things. Phone calls to a coach or emails to a coach. You or your family can call a coach beginning June 15th of your sophomore to junior year, right? A coach can call you or your family between your sophomore and your junior year on that June 15th date, okay? Before that, coaches they're not going to reach out to you if you call them and leave them a message. They're not going to respond to you, right? They're not allowed to respond to you, okay? Who can they respond to at any time? Anybody? Yeah, your coaches. Good answer, right? So your coaches. So that's why it's going to be important that your coach plays an active role in this. And only in just knowing some of the discussions that you're having and where you're at. Again, we'll see that when we talk about networking a little bit more. Off-campus contact. A college coach may have contact with you or your family off the college's campus beginning August 1st of your junior year in high school. And then unofficial and official visits. This was also a couple of folks asked about this. You and your family can visit a college at your own expense beginning August 1st of your junior year of high school. Now I will say, so this is while having, and Chris, if I'm going to say this wrong, please correct me, but this is while having contact, recruiting contact with the coach or the program, okay? You can visit a college anytime you want. In fact, I would strongly encourage you. How many of you or your athlete, right, your athlete or you, have games, showcases, tournaments, or events outside of the greater Cincinnati area this year? Yeah, I would think most of you do, right? I know my team, I've got U17 team, and we've got 4 events that are 3 that are going to take us outside of the greater Cincinnati area. I would encourage you to utilize those chances to go visit colleges. Those are unofficial visits that you're paying for that take you there. How many of you are planning on going on vacation anytime in the next 3 years? Yes? Really? You've already got plans? So those are great opportunities to visit colleges, to make unofficial visits, okay? And I'll throw it back to that, you guys are going to get tired of hearing me say this, the best fit when we get to that slide. Official visit, a college may pay for you to visit. So again, the big difference, unofficial visit, you're paying for it, okay? It's on your dime, okay? Official visit, a college may pay for you to visit the college for the purposes of recruiting beginning August 1st of your junior year, okay? Now, for girls, and again, and Chris, this is changing, I think. Would you agree that this is changing a little bit? For girls, that date was a little bit ridiculous because the recruiting calendar for girls Division I soccer was so skewed, right? That June 1st of your junior year visit, by that time the colleges were already asking for kids to make decisions. That has moved in a better position now, where that June 1st might actually be beneficial to the recruit who is getting on campus because they've not made a decision yet. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Official and official doesn't make it official if we set up we pay for it, go there, we're on a weekend trip, whatever, and we set up an appointment to meet with the coaches. Does that change that official, unofficial?
No, to the best of my knowledge, no. Chris, would you? Yeah. No. We did it with my daughter. We had a number of visits that we did where we went ahead and reached out to the coach and said, hey, are you going to be available? Can we stop in and talk? Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to not go through all this with you, right? But you'll know that it's there, right? The calendar is obviously, well, not obviously, the calendar can be a little bit different for lower divisions, specifically for Division III, where there really are not nearly the limitations to both your contact with the program or their contact with you, as well as the dissemination of information and things that they can put in front of you to try and provide you with a great glimpse of their program, both the college, the academic institution, and the athletic program. So for the most part, the Division II falls fairly much in line with Division I, okay, as far as the dates and some of the restrictions, okay. The other thing, what's not on here because it's not officially a part of the calendar is how many of you right now are considering or would be interested in Division I or Division II college soccer? Just quick show of hands. Or if your child, if you know your athlete is interested in it. Okay. So both Division I and Division II, and then NAIA, just in a separate pathway, do require potential student athletes who are pursuing opportunities at those levels to register with the NCAA clearinghouse. Okay, so it is something that you would have to go online. You have to fill out a form, just letting them know who you are. And then basically what the clearinghouse does is track academic eligibility for you and for the institution where you may end up. And so it's going to provide you a framework for required coursework throughout your high school path. Right? They really encourage students to get onto that by the end of really in their sophomore year, and then have you check in frequently with your academic advisor at your high school to ensure that you are on the correct path. And so then you can submit your transcripts as you go through high school to ensure that you're taking the appropriate courses to be eligible when you get to your senior year and you're getting to that signing day, which is also on this recruiting calendar. Okay, NAIA also has a separate clearinghouse that they have now instituted for their athletes as well, to ensure that you meet the academic requirements in order to be a participant in a collegiate sports at those institutions. Okay, again, all of this you can go through. So dead periods and quiet periods was another one of the questions that came up frequently. So for the women's, November 7th through 10th, so Monday through Thursday of the initial signing for NLIs, not to be confused with making money. The NLI holy cow, Chris, why am I just blanking? Letter of intent, national letter of intent. And then December 15th through January 5th is also a dead period. For the men, November 7th through 10th also, but then theirs is shorter for the post-dead period, which is just December 9th through 11th. And basically, for them, just means a staff member may not, can attend an event conducted in conjunction with the host city, so of the championship. And then quiet period is December 23rd through 25th. So dead period just means that's a period where the Division I college coach cannot come and see your daughter play, and cannot have phone contact with them, cannot have official campus visits at that time period as well. And again, it's just a part of that, trying to give the kids, honestly, some breathing space. Okay, so next thing on the agenda is networking. And so we did a presentation for our coaches as well, as trying to review their role, and we actually had a very similar slide up for the coaches. And I really only changed 3 words on this, because I think it's just as important for the players as it is for the coaches to be networking. So just, again, talking to coaches in your club and your age group, right? So if you look at our program, in most of our age groups, we have 2, 3, sometimes even 4 coaches who can all give our players input on where they're at, what they're doing effectively, what they see as being areas that they can develop, how they fit, because most of them have had experience in college, have had experience in the recruiting process, or have had former players go through the process. So they can provide a lot of insight. And so I think it's important that we encourage all of our athletes to get out there and connect, get out there and talk and get perspective from other people. I put in coaches. I should have also put former players in there as well, because I'm sure Meg would be able to guide somebody very well. Coaches at other clubs in your area or region. Former coach that you played for, right? Coaches that you play against, right? Get some insight. What did you think, what did I do well? What did you worry about when I played? What did you see that you thought I could have done better? How could I have challenged your team more? Right? So that we have some insight, some real vision on who we are and what our role is in the game. College coaches in your region, right? Now you might not get to know them personally, but at least know who they are, right? Because you're going to be talking to them, right? If that's a place that you want to engage yourself in, and again, we're in a very fortunate landscape in the greater Cincinnati area, because you can go 75 miles around the city, put a pinpoint in wherever you live, go 75 miles, and you're pretty sure that you're going to reach every one of the levels of play, right? With the exception of NJCAA, because Cincinnati State no longer offers a program, right? But Division I, right? You've got NKU, you've got UC, you've got Xavier, UD. If you push it a little bit more, UD Wright State, right? Push it a little bit further east, you've got Ohio, okay? In the Division II level, right? You've got, I was going to say Bellarmine, but they're Division I now. So actually Division II might be a little bit light. Well, going to, but not currently. But yes, you're right. Thomas More is going to be moving to Division II. So, but yeah, so there's plenty of options for you to get to know coaches in this area, and just get their personalities, get to see who they are, know the various levels of play. Again, as I've just said, right? There's a lot of different levels of play, right? Go over to Mount St. Joe and see a D3 game. Go to Wilmington and see a D3 game, right? Go a little bit further to Cedarville and see D2. Go down to Thomas More when they get to D2, or NAI right now, okay? And just see what does that look like? Because if you're saying, right, I want to be this, well, it's going to be helpful if you know what this is, right? And that would be true in any pursuit that you have, right? I want to be a symphony pianist. Well, if I've never seen a pianist play at that level, well, what do I know about what I can provide or what I need to work on in order to get to that level, okay? All right, and then seek honest recommendations, all right? And that was an important part of what we said to our coaches in this presentation, is make sure that you're being honest with your players. All right? And that's a hard conversation for the coaches to have. It's a very hard conversation for you and your athlete. So you, if you are the athlete sitting here, your athlete, if you're the parent, to have. All right? But it's going to be really important that you recognize the value of getting an honest opinion and honest feedback on where you're at right now and what your level of play is. So, and again, I will say it personally, and I'm sure Chris has had the same thing, right? I have had a player who was not an impact player for me, who said she wanted to go to the University of North Carolina to play soccer, all right? And it probably was a 2.5-month conversation with her and her parents, letting them know that she could go to North Carolina. She'd be a great student there. She was a really smart kid. She was never going to play at that university, right? Because not everybody can, right? We go back to the beginning. 480,000 kids playing high school, 42,000 playing, and that's overall, right? So you have to know what you're capable of and what your role can be, okay? All right. So that starts the next two infamous slides, right? Where do I fit? And this is important, right? And so jump straight from networking into the first part, right? Making sure that you're having honest best fit discussions with your coach, right? Having honest best fit discussions with someone else whose input you can take as reliable, as honest, and as constructive, okay? Determine your areas of strength and your areas that need development. And then what is my role within a college program? So it's taking a look at, well, what can I bring to a college, right? What is it that I'm good at that this coach will see and want or need, okay? Maybe I'm a fast winger and they play a 3-5-2 and I don't mind defending and getting back, right? And I can go. You guys, is Bob still playing 3-5-2? No? Okay. That's good. But anyway, so that's something, maybe you're a pesky forward who can score goals but also pressures really well. Okay? Well, that's something that a lot of coaches might look for, all right? But it's also understanding, and we'll go back to that roster size, right? 28 to 29 players on a roster, all right? Division III or Division II, generally higher, all right? My daughter played Division II in Florida. When she showed up on campus her freshman year, 32 kids on the team, all right? They had 11 freshmen that came in her year, all right? So that's something you should know about, and you've got to be settled in. All right, well, what might my role be? Am I going to be okay in a position where I may not start for the first year, for the second year, for the third year, for the fourth year? I could run through a list of players that went to school with her that never played a game. They were there all 4 years, never played a game. All right? So is that a role that you're okay with because you want to play soccer at that level? Or are you looking for a level where you can compete for a position? Or are you looking for a level where you're going to be impactful within that program, where you're going to have a chance to be a star, right? That's a question that you have to have with yourself, that those of you who are parents in here need to have with your child, right, your athlete, so that you can start to determine best fit. Engage in active examination. And what I mean by this is, again, it goes back to, that piano player, right? I don't know if that's the best analogy, but you have to know something about where you're headed and what your interest is. So it's very simple. There's this thing called Google. It's an amazing tool. I didn't have it when I was trying to go play soccer in college, but you can check rosters of players, right, that are currently at the college that you're looking at, currently playing at the level that you're looking at, and go dive deeper, all right? See the breakdown in years, and ask some questions about it. If you go into a college's roster and you see that there are only 3 to 4 seniors, know that there were more than 3 to 4 players who came in that year, right? There's only 2 or 3 juniors, okay? So if it's the same coach throughout, that suggests, all right, well, why did all those players leave? right? What was that decision? Why was there so much rotation there? Okay? Can also tell you something else, right? So if they have 12 freshmen and 10 sophomores, right? If you're coming in the next year as a freshman, what does that mean for you? Go ahead. Yeah, right? It's going to be a lot more work, isn't it? Okay? Also, take a look at where those kids are coming from. What level of club play did they play? What accolades did they earn in high school, right? What are their majors? Because soccer isn't all that you want to explore. You know, that was another question that someone posed in the RSVP. What majors do soccer players generally have? Well, first it'd be whatever major that the college provides, right? There's not an exclusion to what major you can have and play in soccer. But it's sometimes interesting to see what are the players majoring in? What are their other pursuits? What are their other interests? How much would that mirror what I want to do? How much would it counter who I am as a person? How much would it complement who I am as a person? And then check out their games, all right? Certainly at the Division I level, you can watch nearly anybody. It might cost you a little bit of a subscription. Get ESPN Plus and you can watch almost every Division I women's soccer game played on whatever day that there is a game. You can watch it, all right? But even on just your basic cable or satellite subscription, you can see games on a regular basis. And as I've already mentioned, we are in an area where you could go on a regular basis and see college soccer being played. Whether it's the fall, now obviously we're just walking out of that, or spring. Spring games are sometimes great to go to, right? Because you can get a real glimpse of what's going on with that program, what their style of play is, and what they may be looking for from incoming athletes. And then talk about commitment levels. Now that might be on the unofficial visit. You may talk to the coach, talk to a player. Hopefully Meg can provide some insight from her perspective on commitment. I showed that screen that talked a little bit about time management and commitments, right? How much are you looking for? Generally, and this can vary program to program because every coach has a different focus that they're looking for from their athletes. So to just say goes from Division I and then incrementally steps down may not always be true. But generally, from Division I to NAIA, there is less of a commitment and engagement in your athletic life at each level, right? I've had a number of players who went to Division I colleges to play and left, and their primary thing was, it was a job. It was a job, right? And so, you know, if you're not looking for athletics to be a job, then you may want to ensure that either you're looking for a lower division or that you're really exploring within that division what that coach's program is like. And often that's going to be better coming from a player who is engaged in that system than it will be specifically talking to that coach, right? Or see if you can get a calendar, right? Can I get a calendar that shows all the things that the players have to do, that they're doing on a regular basis, okay? And that kind of goes to the time management concerns, right? How much time do I want to be spending with my sport? How much time do I want or need to spend on my academic pursuits? Because ultimately, that's why you're there, right? Soccer is just a pathway to a specific institution or just an activity that you don't want to let go of. And that's a great decision, right? To not let go of this opportunity that you have to continue playing an incredible game that I think we all love. But your primary objective has got to be to get out of there with a degree and move forward in a profession. And it's not going to be, for most of you, soccer, right? 2% of the 42,000 have moved on to professional level play, right? So, yes, there's a chance. I wouldn't tell any of you that there's not a chance. It's just you got to be planning for it not to be there more than you plan for it to be there, all right? Any questions at this point? No? Meg, anything I've left out? Chris, anything you want to add? Okay. All right. So, second part, where do I fit part 2? The search. All right. How do I find this college? And ultimately, this is going to be something that we're going to go and show you through sports recruits. But so initial college search, right? And honestly, that number, I put 15 to 20 colleges, right? How many of you, raise your hand if you're an athlete here who has started their college search? You've started your college search. Okay, what year are you? Junior, okay. All right, anybody else? No one else, or you're just too shy to put up your hand? Okay, either way, all right? I would encourage you, if you're a freshman or sophomore, start your college search, right? Because, and again, and you're gonna see it on the screen, right? The college search, there's only one aspect of that is athletics, right? The rest of it is all about who you are, who you wanna be, where you wanna be, okay? So you can start taking a look at that right now and exploring or rejecting, right? And then focusing in. I put 15 to 20 on here. That would be, if you are a junior, right? You should be down to 15 or 20 by now, right? If you're a freshman, 50, right? If you're a sophomore, cut that to half, right? 25, 30, right? So that you start to recognize, now, how do I make that list, all right? There's a lot of different things, all right? So begin now. If you're a freshman, you're a sophomore, you're a junior, whatever you do, the next thing you do, start your college search, okay? First, academic interests, right? If you know. Now that's going to make it tougher for the freshman and sophomore in most cases, right? Because generally they have a broad idea of what they want to do, but maybe not a specific idea yet, but that's all right, okay? You can find schools that encompass a lot of different academic endeavors, right? And then location, distance, setting, etc. My daughter was very quick to start her college search. It went like this. She literally brought a map of the United States into our dining room table, laid it down. It was about a 4x3 map. Put a dot in the city of Cincinnati, drew a 300-mile radius and said, not here. I kid you not, a great kid, I love her, right? But she was literally, I am not going anywhere inside this circle. Like, okay, that's cool, right? Her older brother, same thing, right? So she ended up in Florida, he ended up in Milwaukee. He didn't quite make it, right? My other three all stayed in the state of Ohio. Okay, so it varies, right? You're going to get different things. And then you got to decide as a parent, or if you're an athlete in here, you got to sell your parent on that's okay. Because listen, there are a lot of parents who will not let you go 300 miles away. Right? It was tough for her mother and I, right, to go. But she was also a very independent child. So distance can be a big thing. Some kids are going to be exactly the opposite, 100 mile only in here, right? Okay. Some of you parents might be like, hey, you sure? 150, 200? Come on, can we just get your way. 100, I tell you this, right? 75, you can see them frequently. That's good or bad, right? You have to decide whether that's good or bad, okay? From a soccer standpoint, I will say it was tough. Fortunately, Florida Southern and the conference that she played in showed every game on TV, on the internet. We could pick it up. But you get whatever college student is videoing and talking through this game, right? So sometimes they were bang on. Sometimes it was one camera showing you a wall most of the game. So there's those things between you and your mom and dad. And this is, again, why I said you have to make sure that you guys are on the same train, right? That you're going in the same direction about this and that you're talking through the process. Don't make assumptions. Athlete out there, don't make assumptions about what your parents can do for you, will do for you, won't do for you, or what they want for you. Mom and dad, same thing. Talk, right? Make sure you're communicating about it. Because again, the idea is finding the best fit for them. Okay? And that's really important. Okay, so distance setting, right? Do I want to live in an urban environment? Do I want to live in a rural environment? Do I want to be in a big city? Do I want to be in a small city? Do I want to be out in the country? Right? Because you can find every one of those levels, right? You can find in every one of those settings. But every one of those settings is not always right for each athlete, all right? I will say again, so I had a number of student athletes. And this is especially when I was coaching at the junior college level here locally. I would recruit kids from all over, and I want to go away. I'm going to get, and I would get at least 2 student athletes would transfer to us every year. Why? Because they were not in the right setting, they were too far from home, and so they wanted to be somewhere where they felt more engaged, more involved in what their environment was. So making sure that you explore that before you get there is important. And I will say this is specifically to this audience, right? And it's anecdotal. I don't have the numbers for it other than just a long time in this area, right? Women's soccer, and Chris, you can, if you've got, women's soccer seems to have more transfers than any sport or gender that I know, right? So women's lacrosse doesn't, women's basketball doesn't, men's soccer doesn't, right? Men's basketball doesn't, right? More transfers. And I think a lot of it, and I think this was more so when there was a heavier push early for female athletes to make their college decision, was they didn't get enough research done on what the right fit was for them, right? And so they ended up being in a place that they didn't belong, all right? And then they had to go and find it somewhere else. Things that also get forgotten about life. Like, you have to live there, right? You are not just an athlete, you're not just a student, you are living there. What's housing like, right? What is your dining like, right? If you like a lot of options now, then you probably aren't going to be happy with no options then, right? So making sure that you get a chance to, whether again it's online, in person is great, but check out what they're feeding you and where. Check out other activities. So not just your athletics, not just your academics. What else is going on out there? All right. What other things does this college sponsor? What other things does the host area, the city, the community that your institution is located, what else do they have to offer? Right? And are you the person who needs a lot? Or are you okay being smaller and you don't need a lot to do? You're focused internally, you find your own things to enjoy, you like making a few friends and having them be your core, okay? So, and then obviously, oh, that last one, soccer, right? Explore soccer. What's the team like? What's their playing? Just go all the way back, right? Oops, don't go back that way. Go back to this, right? Where you know the various levels of play, right? Find out what's going on, okay? So what is the soccer like, all right? Analyze, talk to players, talk to coaches. What's the soccer like, okay? All right, then we jump into some of the how. Okay, so I talked about my daughter in the 300-mile radius, not radius, yeah, 300-mile radius, okay? The nice thing about Sports Recruits is that it actually helps you do that. It helps you search for your school, your best fit on all of these filters, right? So you can utilize that to start looking at all of the colleges in the United States, and some even abroad, and take a look at, all right, well, what may offer what I have, or what I'm looking for, sorry, what may offer what I'm looking for, okay? And then trying to set up your fit. This kind of actually jumps out, but so updating your Sports Recruits profile. First things first, just get in there, put a photo, grad year, and your position. All right? If you do nothing else, do that. Because if you don't have a photo, your grad year, and your position, so every coach in the country has access to Sports Recruits. Some of them may not be using it actively, right? Some of them do considerably, but all of them have access to it. If your photo, grad year, position helps, but if your photo and grad year are not uploaded in your profile, they can't see you. So even though you say, well, I have a Sports Recruits profile, or I've done this and this, I put this, if you don't have an updated photo and grad year, they can't see you. So that's important because it obviously puts you up there, okay? And then going back on your initial search, then start emailing colleges, right? And obviously prior to first event, so for you guys this week, for those who are doing Gateway, or whatever your calendar is set up for from a match standpoint to do that. We're going to get into the sports recruits, but if you do the sports recruits set up right, that's also already in there. So any coach that sees your profile or who you send the link to your profile will have your schedule right up front. And then intro message to college coach. So college coaches, it's important that you go back to the calendar. So for most of you in your sophomore year, junior year, as you're going through and you've really started to narrow your search, right? It's going to be important. The majority of players within the club setting are not going to have a lot of coaches reaching out to them to initiate contact, right? Only probably your top 10%, 15% of your athletes in any setting, high school setting, club setting, are going to have significant input, or initial contact, from coaches. The initial contact is going to have to come from the athlete, right? From the prospective student athlete. So it's important that you become comfortable, familiar, and active in letting coaches know that you're interested in them, right? So once you get your search narrowed, and I would say sending out 50 is not that productive, right? Once you get your search narrowed that second time, so 30, 25, and certainly by the time you get to 15, 20, right, you should be contacting coaches, okay? And I don't expect you to read all this. Again, this is linked to the presentation. It's just an email template. This is not you don't have to copy it straight from here. It just gives you something to start with. What I will say is be simple, be honest, all right? And you don't have to initially, right, put in a lot of details about what you're capable of or what your expectations are. Just generally saying, here's who I am, I'm interested in your college. Put in a couple of keys, might be location, might be the level of soccer, it might be an academic program that you've researched. You're like, I'm interested in engineering, saw that you guys have one of the top-rated engineering programs in your state, Kentucky, Indiana, whatever the state of the institution is. And I really would, love to have the opportunity to be a part of your soccer program. And then provide them information on how they can get more information about you. Easiest is going to have your profile updated in Sports Recruits and link that along with CCing or connecting your club coach in the email, right? That way they can get a hold of you, okay? So again, you guys will all have access to this. Again, my name is Susie. I am a 2024 student athlete currently playing for King's Hammer Soccer Club in Cincinnati, where you put you're in Newport, Kentucky. I attend, I said Newport, so we'll go to Newport Central Catholic. And last season I was, freshman of the year, I was all-conference second team. If you haven't been, then just leave that blank, right? I'm beginning to explore my college options, and I'm very interested in attending and playing soccer at your institution, at, Sports Recruits University. It offers everything I'm looking for in a college. It's within my distance that I'm looking for from home. It has a recognized business program and your competitive soccer program. Therefore, I want to introduce myself and give you some information about my athletic and academic background. And it just says, please click on the link to access all of my athletic and academic information. In addition, you'll find my contact information, my coach's contact information, awards, and our travel schedule. You'll also be able to watch my highlight reel on my Sports Recruit player profile. All right, so very simple, right? And then you go. So this is a template for an email, right? Which leads us to the email. Here's what I would encourage for all of you. How many of you, and if parents can answer this as well, how many of the athletes have their own non-school email address? So by non-school, I mean not a high school listed email address that they currently use. Okay, all right, so a few. I would encourage you to have, and again, it's not the end all or be all. I just think it makes every step a little bit simpler. I would encourage you to get I just always use Gmail, right? A Gmail account that is very simple for a college coach to track, right? That means your name, right? Whether there's a dot in there or not, your graduation year, and then at gmail.com. And obviously I would encourage both mom and dad and the athlete to have access to that account to be able to get into it, okay? Because it's easier for college coaches as they're recruiting to find you, keep track of you, and go. Again, there's no obligation, there's no requirement. I just think from my standpoint, I know when I was doing recruiting, it was just simpler. And I know the athletes that I have helped, even away from my college coaching days, found it to be easier to use, okay? But regardless, email template for sending out emails to that 25 to 30 coaches or institutions that you want to contact. Again, nice thing about Sports Recruits is that you can email every college in the country. Now, I would not encourage you to do that, but you can email every college coach in the country from your Sports Recruits account, right? And then you can link it to your Gmail account if you choose to, okay? I would also then encourage every athlete to have their email account, whether it's a Gmail or it's their school-based, whatever, their email account as the primary on their Sports Recruits account. For most athletes, especially those that are new to the club or new to the high school age group, that is not currently true because we base your Sports Recruits account on your Play Metrics account. And since mom or dad are the ones registering the athlete for club participation, it's their account that is the primary for sports metrics, or for Play Metrics. So it's their account that starts the Sports Recruit movement. So when you go in and update your profile, you may also want to consider changing your primary. Now, mom and dad are still linked because there's a parent email, so they'll still see and have communication, but the primary would be the athlete. And I think that's something that you should definitely explore as well when you're setting up your profile. All right, okay, so I've got a quick 10-minute video. I also have a link to a presentation. So when you get this, Lauren Munhill, who you're going to listen to from Sports Recruits, does a great job of supporting me in my role as Sports Recruits coordinator in providing us all kinds of things. So she provided a slide show that I'm going to make accessible to you guys that really addresses it. This is a general all-sport presentation. The slideshow that she has that I'll send to you guys is specifically to Kings Hammer Soccer Club athletes. So come on in. Yep, it's all good. She seems a little young for recruiting. I don't know. More thing to go through, but so a couple of things just to pull from that before we close. One, as I said, and she said wide net. Notice the wide net was 28, right in that 30 to 25 range that I said, that by the time you're sophomore moving into junior year, you should have. And then from that wide net, it should, based on emails, based on communications, based on refining your search, the best fit for you, should start to get smaller as you start to really focus in on the college of your choice. Just to wrap up before we get to Meg and some Q&A, so additional resources, again, all of these are linked in here, right? The recruiting guides for both Division I and Division II. I'm also going to include the recruiting guide to NAIA in there as well. NCAA recruiting fact sheet, which is a lot of where the data that I presented to you came from. And then the Eligibility Center, that's the guide for academic eligibility. So that's where you would want to go to get information on setting up your account within the clearinghouse and then navigating through that. And I will try to get the link to the NAIA's guide as well for athletes that want to go through that. Sports Recruits, if you have ever gotten an email from me, you will have seen that help at sportsrecruits.com because once I get you into the system, it's usually much easier for them to solve any issues with your account than it is for me, because I don't have as much access, obviously, as they do. So help@sportsrecruits.com. And then if you want to connect with me, Wil@kingshammer.com, and the Twitter address where I will post a lot of the stuff, honestly, that I post on the Twitter is coach related or parent related, but I will be doing more and more as we get into the season on any recruiting things that I see that I think would be valuable to our members. All right, so that's that. We'll go ahead. Matt, you want to hit the lights? So what, again, wanted to turn to, it's bright, right? Yeah, turn to Meg and Chris again, if you had any things that you might be able to provide as far as your perspective as the Academy Director for a lot of the athletes that are in here, that'd be great. Meg, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey and where you're at now. Meg, sorry, I'm going to have you grab. Well, Matt, you tell me, do you need it? Can you hear?
It would help.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm Meg, and I play at Northern Kentucky University. I'm a goalkeeper. I'm a freshman. But first off, my recruiting process started around my freshman year in high school. But then they made the rule that you can't talk to coaches until before your junior year. But so keeping in contact with coaches through that gap was a little bit difficult, so there was obviously a little gap there. I would say keeping connections with your coaches. I kept connections through Chris a lot. It helped me with my recruiting process a lot. Definitely attending camps can help. It's not going to guarantee anything, but it can help you know the coaches and know the campus and see if you like it there. Making visits, scheduling visits with coaches definitely helps. And then obviously the COVID period also hit during my sophomore year, and that was when we had to make recruiting videos and training videos and a lot of highlight videos, which was a little bit more difficult than probably what you guys are going through. Yeah, but just keeping connections and scheduling phone calls and emailing, constantly emailing, even if you think you're getting annoying to coaches, emailing is what you need to do. Yeah.
Meg, when you say so, you talk a lot about
Did you do this or your parents?
I did it. Your parents can help you make emails, but it's on you.
That's a huge one, right? Because they're not recruiting the parents. They want to develop a relationship with the player to not only see if they're the right fit for their program, right? But at the same time, you're developing a relationship with the coach to make sure that it's the right fit for you as well. So it's really important that the players take the initiative to do those things.
And then, Meg, just kind of following up with that, for the emails, so obviously you're playing at a Division I level, so you were, a highly regarded athlete. Still, I would wonder how many email introductions came from the coaches of the schools first, or versus how many emails did you send out introducing yourself to a coach who hadn't already reached out to you?
I would say most, if not all, were started by me. Coaches don't, unless they really, really are interested, you're starting the conversations more than they are. Yeah.
I appreciate it, and that's what I thought, and I want to make sure that everyone hears that, right? That if you want to play in college, you need to engage in the process, right? You're going to have to open the door first, because for most student athletes, the door is not going to be opened for them by someone else, okay?
I would also, now that we're on the email, just talking about emails, I would make sure that you're not copy and pasting and sending the same email. You send it to a bunch of different schools. Again, it's a small community. We talk a lot. I've coached college soccer for 20 years, and there was times where I got emails that had the wrong coach's name on them as well. So those things don't really look good. But at the same time, you have to do some research on your own and put those things into your email that's sparking an interest that, it's a genuine interest that you're, excited about their, not only their soccer program, but maybe their school as well. So social media is huge, whether you like it or not, I do not. But social media is huge, and I would follow those programs on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, whatever it is, because again, that's information that you're going to get from everyone else's cell phone nowadays.
Yeah. And I will say that also works in reverse as well. Social media exists, and college coaches know social media exists. Admissions officials know that social media exists. So if you have an account right now where you're posting things that would not put you in a favorable light for those people who are looking for the right fit for their program, I would make sure that you're reviewing how, what, and why you're posting, right? And be sure that when you're doing that it's not something that the coach that you're trying to connect with would deem as inappropriate or not suitable for their program. Because I do know players who have lost opportunities based on things that they have on social media or had on social media, right? So all those pictures where you're flipping off your friends, yeah, it seemed funny. Not so much, right? And that's just one mention, right? So, okay. All right, Meg, anything else?
I would also just say, again, understanding that everybody's on their own timeline and their own process. So if you have players on your team that are committing maybe early, there's no reason to get discouraged or frustrated. I think Meg, for instance, committed, I think, middle of her senior year. Now Meg is also a different, I had to do a lot of research from a goalkeeper standpoint, right? If there are goalkeepers in here, like most times there's 3 or 4 spots on a college team. So, my guidance to her when she was going through looking at schools, like go on the rosters and see what age those goalkeepers are. So she had a little bit more difficult time and had to probably cast a wider net overall from a goalkeeping standpoint. So. Yeah. What's your like everyday, during the season, you haven't gone through the winter, but in the spring, what did it look like this fall for you?
So in the fall, I would wake up and go to class, and then go straight to practice, and then go straight back to class. But on game days, class, and then you would have meeting and film, and then go back to class, and then you would come back to the stadium for pregame, more meals, and then game time, and then after you have more meals with the team. So it's a lot of time spent with soccer and school too. It's very important.
It's a lot of eating as well.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of food. Yeah. Hey, Meg, I know. So you, as Chris said, you've not gotten into the off season yet. So I'm sure some of that will change. But in season, did you guys also do some strength training as well?
Not as much during the season, but preseason we did. Yes. So
Okay.
we're starting up. We just started Friday again. So.
Okay. How many times a week will you be going? Because you've probably gotten your schedule. How many times a week will you be going off season?
We lift 3 times a week, and we practice 3 times a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's off season.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So again, goes back to time management and commitment and engagement. Right. How much do you want to be this activity to be a part of your life? Right. Because at that level, and again, I will say just from my own reference, right, D2 level, my daughters, like it was all the time, right? They were never really out of season. There was no off season. You were doing something all the time. So, okay.
Yeah, I would just say, just from that, again, those divisions, you get they get 20 hours a week with you during the fall. And then in the winter, it's 8 hours. And it's 2 hours with the ball. So you're going to do a lot of lifting, and you're going to play with the ball a lot less time in that winter time frame. And then when spring hits, it's another 20 hours. And most times you have 5 spring games, and then again, Division III, they play like 1 game and they have no spring season. So again, I would say figure out the path that you're looking for. I've coached all sorts of different levels where we've had kids go to Power 5 schools, meaning ACC, Big Ten, SEC, Pac-12, big time levels. We have kids going to mid-major schools. We have kids going to Division II. We have kids going to Division III. And some of those kids at the Division III level decided they wanted to go study abroad. They wanted to maybe have an internship, different things like that that maybe a Division I athlete can't always do. So it's just finding the right fit for you as a family and as a person. There's many choices out there. So.
Okay, we got a little bit of time for some Q&A. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
For emails, for the subject line, what catches a coach's eye? Because they get so many emails every day.
I mean, I would put your name, put your graduating year, put your position. I feel like that's what I used to do, like in your club maybe too. Yeah.
But I don't know that, the subject line, again, it's just, now I'm going to preface this by saying, all right, it's your first contact, right? So just, as Meg said, right, your name, grad year, position, and just introduction, right? Just so they know how to search that out of their inbox, right? So they know where to find that. And then as so it's going to be, follow-up, right? Or it may be specific to, like if you invited them to an event. So let's say there's a coach that you're inviting to the Gateway, right? Gateway Showcase follow-up. Right, so then they can go back, especially if they're engaged frequently in sports recruits. They're going to be engaged in Event Beacon, which means they've got the recruiting tools right on their phone. So they're going to have clicked athletes that they watched at Gateway. So then when you send that tag, this is Gateway follow-up. All right, I can go right to my computer or my phone and filter through the Gateway event and see all the athletes that I watched at the Gateway, and so now I can be seeing your email and connecting what I saw with who you are. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Anyone else? Yeah?
How much film clip? Like, how much do they want to see?
Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to throw this back to Chris. To me, I would say under 4 to 5 minutes. 2 to 4 minutes is typical, right? Like, because again, they don't have a lot of time to see a lot. But what you want to do is have them see enough to want to go back in and see more, right? Which would be then extended game tape, right? So, making sure that highlight shows enough and some variety. And again, Chris, but not just making, well, for you it is. It's a lot of making saves, right? But not just shooting and scoring, but then, defending on the ball, right? Not just defending on the ball, but movement behind the ball. And then also, it's funny because I just saw a few clips that some players did, and make sure, and most of the products that you'll be using, right? So sports recruits, if you do it internally or if you're using an external product, most of them have the capability to halo, shadow, circle you, right? Because I'm number 24. I don't know about you guys. If you've seen video clips, right? Finding number 24, nightmare, right? So highlight yourself so that they can see your movement and recognize right away on that screen, right? Okay, that's the player who sent me the highlight. This is what I'm supposed to be seeing. This is what I'm watching for, right? Because it becomes very hard. Chris, do you want to lend some of your input?
Probably put 20 seconds before and after as well. Just to give you a picture. But I think college coaches are different. If they might, some of them may just ask you like, hey, can you send a whole game, depending on your time. But you know, and then I mean, something like Will said, it can't always just be like I do everything amazing all the time because they're not naive from that standpoint. So, with goalkeeper, for instance, I might put in a goal I gave up, and then I might show a segment like right after because they want to see how you deal with adversity and how you respond. And then I've told her many times at showcases like your warm up is so important. As a goalkeeper, you might touch the ball 2 times in the game or 1 time in the game. And like how serious you take your warm up and how good you are in the warm up is sometimes important because the college coach they just come out and watch the warm up. You might want to touch the ball.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that helped. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming out. Again, I hope that it at least opened up the pathway, right? That it brought to light some things that maybe you hadn't considered or reframed some things that you already had, and that it'll be a resource for you as you move forward. So again, if you have any questions, you'll get the presentation probably sometime next week. And then Matt will have the videotape available if you want to go back and review anything. And if you have any questions, you now should be able to get a hold of me. All right? Thank you. Appreciate your time.